I feel like that we've done 2 days of talking about what it would look like to get out of the boat. We've done 2 days talking about actually a topic that people don't often share in situations where some of the churches are just fighting for survival. We don't talk about expansion because it's just so hard to even survive sometimes. I get that. So thank you. Because I actually do believe the movement and who we are is organic. And organic things, like live things, have as a natural part of their process reproduction. You can't talk about all the nutrients and all that type of stuff and forget that part of the journey. By the way, look at the person next to you and say, you're not going to live forever. Just say that. Just bless them this morning. Because another natural part is dying.
Yeah, but in heaven we can live forever.
It is. It is. By the way, there's no such thing as retirement. Thought I'd slip that one in right in, kind of under the door right there. That's a cultural lie. If you buy it, then all of a sudden we're less for it. If you buy retirement, retirement is heaven. That's where we cease to live. Don't buy it. We need you. We need what you have. And so we've been talking about what does it look like when we actually are what we're supposed to be. When we're actually supposed to be reproducing. We're supposed to be actually going through this process of life. A lot of people don't want to talk about structures. They want everything just to be organic. But all organic, live beings have structure to it. That's why you're able to sit in that chair and not move. It has structure to you. Our God is a God of structures. The problem is when the structures get ahead of the life, because the structures were never designed to produce the life, just contain the life and help advance the life. So we need to be organized, but that will not produce life. What produces life is the things that you take in and the way you choose to live and the decisions that you make. That's where life comes from. And so we've been doing this missional talk, but I want to bring us back down to now, so what's most important? And share with you a little bit about when you look at how God has worked in the past, what do we learn? And when you look at how God might want to work in our future, what do we learn? In my second session, I'm going to talk about, they gave me the topic, mirrors and windows. What do I see within you, and what do I see potentially ahead for you as I kind of close out my 4 years with you. But before we get there, I just want to talk to you a little bit about what the key is. He was a 16-year-old boy, and he's taken captive by raiders and sold into slavery. He was desperate. He was lonely. He was cold. And he cries out for deliverance. And God answers him. He goes on to pioneer one of the greatest missionary movements the world has ever seen. Desperate, broken, alone, robbed of life that was intended. He's an obscure Augustinian monk who agonizes day in, day out on what it means to be made right with God. Not based upon his works, but based upon his faith, and faith alone. Not through all the things he does for God, through his intimacy with God. Putting his confidence in the character of God, not in all of the things he does to prove his worthiness to God. He even enters into an intense struggle with Satan himself. So real was Satan to him that he took the inkwell and threw it against the wall. Because he was convinced of his imminent attack and destruction from Satan himself, the enemy. I felt him, but I've never seen him like that. And yet he's the catalyst for the protest movement. The movements that said that nothing should be separate us from God, that we can go directly to him. The church doesn't stand in between, that the way is clear. Jesus opened the access and all can come. The protest movement, or the Protestants. By the way, look at one of the people next to me and say, did you know you're a radical protester? Just say that. You are a radical protester. You radical, you. Old Church of England. He's a young minister who returns from the mission field. A failure in his own eyes. Not doing what he thought should have happened. And not having success that he thought should occur. Ever been involved in anything like that? I was sure God said this was going to happen, and it didn't happen. I was sure God was going to move, and it didn't move. I was sure that we were going to get breakthrough, and it didn't come. He dreamed of victory and success out on the mission field, only to come home. And in his agony one day, he wanders out. He contemplates the grace of God, and all of a sudden, God moves in on his heart. Famous words is that his heart was strangely warm. God moved him. Changed everything. And thus began one of the most significant, sorry about that typo, awakenings in modern history. Shook Britain to its core in a good way. And it spread worldwide. Who are these people? Who are these people? Who was that first one? Of course it was St. Francis. Sorry, go ahead, talk to me.
I was going to say, could you review this stuff
About St. Francis? Sure. St. Francis, sold into slavery, imported, taken away, goes back to his homeland, goes back to that land. Sees a great move of God.
Terry, you mean Patrick?
Huh?
Patrick.
Patrick, that's what I'm saying, isn't it?
St. Francis.
You know what? St. Francis was good too, but St. Patrick was better. How many times did I say Francis? Many times. Good.
We were weak.
Maybe we should have been studying St. Francis. Yeah.
I'm weak, Terry.
I know, Jim. This one was for you too, man. Huh? I'm going to get around Jim and want to speak Irish, all right? So, St. Patrick, the Celtic spirituality. No wonder she was saying, can you review that? No. Sorry about that. How about this one? Please, somebody tell me this. Martin Luther. And Martin Luther continuing to stand. No, I'm not going to renounce the thing that I know to be true as I see in God's Word. He had to continue to stand. Do you know when you actually decide which way your life's going to go, you still have to make choices along the way. And then John Wesley. John Wesley. Spread of the whole Methodist, spread of these small groups, spread of a certain method by which you find God, Methodism. Who are these people? You know what we call them right now? We call them heroes. That's what we call them now. You know who they are? They're sitting right next to you. See, we have this hero worship thing. We have this, it happens for everyone else but me thing. One more. This guy. The Borden family is remembered primarily for two things: dairy, and for those who know this story, Lizzie,
Yes.
who was accused, but actually not ever convicted of killing her mother and her father. But she had a brother, and his name's William, and that's who that is up there. William was born into the family of wealth and prosperity. He came to know Christ under the preaching of a fledgling preacher named D.L. Moody.
Ah.
For his high school graduation, his parents gave him a trip around the world. Look at the person next to you and say, that's what I got for my high school graduation. Yeah, a trip around the world.
Wow.
Yeah, that's what we all get. Interesting, while on this trip, he sensed a call of God to missions among the Muslims.
Oh. Wow. Wow.
This met with considerable resistance from his family, no kidding. And virtually everyone around him rejected him. They couldn't believe a person of his station in life would waste his life in a foreign country doing work so menial. Missions. Yet William would not be deterred. In the back of his Bible, he wrote two words: no reserve. No reserves. In other words, all in. About the same time in his journal, he wrote, say no to self and yes to Jesus every time. Wow. You're going to have to keep making choices. Not everyone is going to understand you. Look at the person next to you and say, I've noticed you're a little different. Just say that. I've noticed you're... Yeah, well, okay. Wally could... By the way, isn't it good? Wally's going to be gone soon. We won't have to do that anymore. Although he was a millionaire, William seemed to realize that he must always be about his father's business, not wasting time. Upon graduation from Yale, by the way, that's where you went to school, right? Upon graduation at Yale, William turned down several lucrative job offers, and he studied at Princeton Seminary. This is when that was a good thing. It was during this time he gave away all of his inheritance to missions.
Wow. Wow.
Unbelievable. See, we think money will actually fuel this thing. We think that's the problem. Upon finishing his studies, he set sail for China to fulfill his call to missions. He stopped in Cairo, Egypt, to learn Arabic, and in preparation to evangelize the Muslims in the East. While studying in Cairo, William contracted spinal meningitis. Within 25 months, he was dead. After his death, William Borden's Bible was found and given to his parents. In it, they found one place where the words were written, no reserve, and a date placing the note shortly after he had renounced his fortune. At a later point, though, he had written two more words, no retreat. No reserve, no retreat. And dated shortly after he was diagnosed with spinal meningitis, and shortly before he died, he added this phrase, no regrets. No regrets. Wow. Did he waste his life? What do you think? Come on. Huh. Interesting. William's life has since inspired thousands of people to actually go into missions. In fact, his one life and never going to the mission field was probably one of the catalysts to what's known as the student missions movement.